Well, another one of these old-timers, legends, people who've dedicated their lives to fighting injustice, to making a better world, is Jeremy Corbyn. And this week, we got some Jeremy Corbyn news in that the new leader of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, announced that he was being suspended from the Labour Party, the party who he has been a member of basically his entire adult life. And I want to just play a clip of Keir Starmer's justification for it. It is supposedly has to do with Jeremy Corbyn's rabid anti-Semitism. Kale, play the clip.
Now, you described yesterday as a day of shame for the Labour Party, but it seems with the suspension of Jeremy Corbyn, that's been somewhat of a distraction. Is there a risk here that actually by doing this, by this action happening, then that it's not the focus on the key issue that should be being looked at, which is tackling anti-Semitism?
Well, let me just set out what I had hoped would happen yesterday, because the findings were shameful, and I thought it was absolutely right to accept the findings in full, to accept the recommendations in full, and be absolutely committed to carrying out those recommendations with the Commission, and to apologise for the hurt and grief that have been caused to our Jewish communities, our Jewish members and supporters.
It's, I mean, the smarminess of this guy, like, honestly makes me so angry, because it has been proven time and time again. And it was obvious. I didn't even need proof, I didn't even need the proof to understand what was going on, that this was a completely manufactured and fake controversy. Everything about it was completely fake. But it has been proven time and again beyond any reasonable doubt. I mean, Ronan Burtonshaw, friend of the show and Jacobin editor, and editor of Tribune in the UK, also tackled this today, because he, in the wake of this, when he said that, Jeremy Corbyn said that the scale of the problem was dramatically overstated for political reasons by our opponents inside and outside of the party, as well as by much of the media. This is true. I mean, if you followed that race at all, this was like the issue dominating the race. This is undoubtedly the case. But as we know from the leaked report, so there was a report from inside the Labour Party that was leaked. Individual complainants were responsible in some instances for thousands of complaints, the vast majority of which were unfounded. Even MPs in some cases made statements relating to the number of cases that could not be substantiated. Margaret Hodge, for instance, said she had made 100 anti-Semitism complaints to the party. It later transpired that 80 of these related to people with no connection whatsoever to Labour. That is to say, they aren't even members, let alone office holders or anyone the EHRC would find the party legally responsible for. And it's just, it was so obvious that they were just like, they tried everything at Corbyn. They tried like the Bernie Bro attack on him. They tried like the sexism attack on him. It didn't really stick. And for whatever reason, the anti-Semitism one sort of stuck. And I'm not saying that this was like the reason why Corbyn lost the campaign, although it undoubtedly was a massive distraction from the real issues. Like, he was always forced to talk about it, always forced to answer questions about it. And what we now know is that this was a deliberate strategy from inside the Labour Party by the enemies to his right, sort of the like what we would call here establishment Democrats, your Neera Tandons of the world, your Nancy Pelosi's of the world. Inside the Labour Party, they were actively trying to undermine their own party because they did not like the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn. They did not like the direction that the party was heading, the leftward direction of the party. And we actually got
Nando.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but
I'm
glad that you mentioned that, because in one of the first episodes of Weekends, we had Aaron Bastani on to discuss that, the internal communications in the Labour Party and how they were literally conspiring to eject Jeremy Corbyn from the party, or this is before the elections happened, to essentially sabotage his election. So they have no credibility here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to fall for this narrative anyway, which is incredibly frustrating. It's very similar. I mean, there are parallels to what we see again in the United States when you have progressive challengers to incumbent Democrats, corporate Democrats. And like, for me, it's so obvious. I just want to get to the point where there's a discussion about how to strategically dissuade, allies from falling for narratives like this.
Well,
because it's anyway, go ahead.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think that we should say that the burden of proof for any of these accusations, I mean, remember the Alex Morse thing, like that? And so many people on the left went along with that, just like an accusation is good enough. Like, I mean, this is what the problem was with like the whole narrative around, like, for example, like believe women, like, it's like it just hands them a weapon that they can use. Like anyone can just like make an accusation, and then especially if it's directed in a leftward direction, and it'll
almost
exclusively,
exclusively. Let's keep it real.
And it'll stick. But like it's just so obvious what happens, and it happens time and time again. And there's always been the suspicion that these people would rather lose while still remaining in power within their own institution. It's called like the ironclad law, like the iron law of institutions or something like that. Is that the leaders within the institution would rather their institution fail, but their leadership positions within that institution maintained, than their leadership positions in the institutions removed with the institution succeeding, right? So, like, for example, I firmly believe that were it not for the coronavirus pandemic, Biden would probably lose in a straight fight with Trump. Like, without the economic collapse and the coronavirus pandemic that is like sorry, I just hit something that is underneath it all, I'm pretty sure Biden loses to Trump. But they did everything possible to elect this man while kneecapping Bernie Sanders, and the same thing was happening with Labor, except with Labor we have actual text messages between these people conspiring to sabotage their own party, to lose seats to the Tories. They're like the equivalent of the Republicans in the UK, so that they could oust Jeremy Corbyn. I just want to read a text exchange, or Mikhail, if you want to throw it up on the screen. It's like Julie Lawrence, then director of the General Secretary's office, like a big wig in Labor, says, "I may be jumping the gun here, and Jeremy Corbyn is a proud and selfish man with a team to match. But if we lose these elections, Stoke and Copeland, we as in Labor, we could have another leadership election. We should set up at some stage a discrete working group to go over rules, timetable scenarios, and staff servicing to the process, just so we're prepared, like Operation Cake." And then the executive director of Labor goes, "Hope." Like they're hoping to lose seats. Like they're just openly talking about it. It's crazy to me. Like it's just, and the conversation goes on. You should look up the leaked report on like Labor's internal workings to sabotage Jeremy Corbyn. But it's so infuriating that they weaponize these cynical identity politics. I mean, this is why buying into this kind of identity politics from the left is like, it's like a boomerang. You're throwing a boomerang, it's just going to swing back around and hit you right in the face. It will always double back and hit you. It's never going to work. So I think you're right. I think that we just need to grow some backbone. We need to grow some mettle and just understand what's going on. They're going to level this kind of accusation to every single person who challenges power from the left. I mean, that's just
definitely
100% true.
And also, I think part of the reason why people on the left fall for these narratives, even without any evidence, like they just buy it, part and parcel. There doesn't need to be it's because we know what's going to happen if we're skeptical of the claims, right? If you're skeptical of the claims, then you get attacked, especially if you're a member of the media, of being an enabler of anti-Semitism or racism or sexism or whatever it is. But you're right about the backbone, because the people who are, usually using these types of accusations do it in bad faith. They do it because they want to destroy an incredibly popular message that resonates with people, but goes against their own vested interests, right? So let's be aware of who the enemies are. Let's be aware of how disingenuous these accusations are. And the most important part is, let's just wait until we actually see some evidence of what's being claimed. I mean, I remember it happened with Shahid Buttar as well, Shahid Buttar, and I was just like, okay.
It was so obvious what was going on. It's so obvious. You can see it coming from a mile away. Are you kidding me? I mean, same with Julia Salazar. I mean, like anyone, everyone's going to just assume, a left-wing challenger, they're going to be accused of some bullshit. That's just a baseline. We should work from that premise forward.
Be skeptical and wait to see if there's any evidence. If there's no evidence of it, it's just like vague accusations with no substance to it, then why needlessly fall victim to these like bad faith arguments that are specifically meant to destroy a movement. Like, it just, let's be smarter, and don't be afraid when someone just decides that they're going to call you a racist for demanding evidence, or anti-Semitic for demanding evidence. We should see evidence. And if there isn't any, then we know it's all bad faith.